What's up, everybody? Elevated here, and today we're going to do the Chinese Kickoff Pick'ems. So let's get right into the games. Okay, so All Gamers versus Nova. This is an interesting one to start off. All Gamers made some changes. Nova made some changes. Quickly, we can just kind of update ourselves on the roster. Nova, we've got Azir, Guangji, and Obi-Wan staying on. They added Hebei from Trace, and then Green, and they've changed up their coaching staff a bit. One of their coaches got sniped over to EDG, so they had to, shake things up there. All Gamers has historically had a lot of different random players seemingly on their team, and they have added some more seemingly kind of random players. I don't really know too much about AU1 or IMGRQ, or that's how you pronounce it. Fangear is a very skilled player from Russia who's joining the team, joining Shrimp and Kira. Shrimp had a short stint on, I believe, EDG, if I'm remembering correctly. Or was it FPX? It might have been FPX. Either way, this team, I genuinely don't know how to feel about this team. I don't know too much about the new players, and I thought that they were kind of going in the right direction last year, but they made a lot of changes coming into this year, so I'm not totally sure how I feel about it. For me, I think this pick'em is going to be like completely up in the air. I saw Nova play a little bit in the offseason, and they didn't look great. All Gamers, like I said, I just don't know exactly how they're going to look coming to this year. I think part of me is just going to favor Nova because I scrimmed them quite a bit last year, and so I kind of know, like Guangji specifically, I think is quite good. But this is really kind of a 50-50 for me. I don't feel confident about this pick, but I'm kind of just guessing at this point. Moving on to JDG versus Titan. This one I do feel very confident about. JDG is 100% winning this. I think this Titan squad, they kept everybody from last year, and honestly, this team is pretty low on the Chinese power rankings, in my opinion. Meanwhile, JDG, keeping Stu, is one of the best players in China. Jay Kuro is very good. Caitlyn was solid last year, and they added Jay and Yuka. Yuka obviously was on Wolves when they had their nice run at Masters last year, and Jay was probably, I think, clearly the best player in Chinese Ascension. So definitely good firepower they added to the team, and then some good experience. They also, I think, maybe more importantly, have added Bale or Bile. I can't exactly remember how you pronounce it. Who was with BLG for a long time, and I think that he has clearly proven himself to be a solid coach. So I think with the addition of some very talented players and adding in a very proven coach at this point, JDG should be a good team. And Titan, I just don't think will be. So JDG is going to win this for sure. Trace versus Wolves. This is definitely kind of a banger of a game. Trace doesn't have their full five announced, so I don't know who this last spot is, but they added Delby, who's very good, and Viva, who came over from Gilai. Viva was solid. They've kept Kai Sanat. He's a good player. And Loking is also a solid player as well. I don't know who's IGLing for this team. Trace has kind of been one of those teams that's like always hovering around that fourth, fifth position in China. And I would kind of expect that to continue this year. But without knowing who their fifth is, I'm not as confident in them as I would be, say, last year. I think they got kind of past last year a little bit. And so I'm not totally sure what this year is going to hold for Trace. But I would expect them to still be kind of like a middle of the pack team. Wolves is an interesting one. They kept Spring and Sufat. They added Yosemite, Joa, who came over from Erica's Challengers, I believe. And then a couple other big potential changes with Glacier, who is a hyped player from Taiwan. And then Autumn. Now, this is not Autumn the coach, and this is not Autumn the FPX player. This is a kid who is coming into Tier 1 for the first time. I've kind of had a little bit of knowledge of who this guy is because I've been seeing him on like the ranked leaderboards in Pacific and China. He's been consistently near the top. He has incredible talent. I don't know how it's going to translate into Tier 1, but definitely an interesting roster. I do trust the Wolves scouting quite a bit. And I think probably just because there's a little bit more continuity as far as like they kept their two probably best players from last year and their head coach. Um, ooh, I mean, this is a tough one, honestly. I think just because I know a little bit more, I'm going to believe in Wolves. But again, I don't feel confident about this. I don't feel confident about this. Okay, the next match is going to be Fun Plus Phoenix versus Tyloo. So this one is cool because FPX obviously made some changes, bringing back Scary, reuniting with Legia. They ascended on Bleed together, or obviously all that stuff happened. And then Cetrod is a pretty solid shooter, but maybe a little bit inexperienced. But they kept their core of Life, Ayoung, and Berlin. So IGL from Berlin, Ayoung, one of the best initiator players in China, and Life is a superstar potential player on the duelist role. And then they're going up against just a team of just absolute shooters. So slowly had a breakout performance last year. Clearly one of the best players in China individually. Splash has been, for those of you who are not tapped into like the tier two uh, SEA or Chinese scene, this guy has been sort of like one of the hottest prospects coming out of Indonesia. He was on RRQ Academy, and everybody wanted this guy. So the fact that Tyloo got him is a pretty big deal. Um, Now, I think this team is probably going to be very scary to play as the year goes on, but I would just kind of expect that FPX, with sort of like the more experience, the better structure, will have the advantage in kickoff. I think Tyloo has some upset potential, but I think coming into kickoff, I would trust FPX more. So let's go ahead and send them through. Then we'll go into upper round two. We've got Billy Billy against Nova. So Billy Billy kept their whole roster. They just added EDG's coach. Um, and I think I would trust them to be able to beat Nova. I just don't think that Nova is quite the same caliber of players and team as Billy Billy. I do think that there is some potential for Billy Billy to fall off a little bit because I do think that Bale, their coach, was doing a lot for this team in terms of like keeping their structure good and kind of like tempering some of their maybe less less good instincts because this team definitely has a potential to overheat and get a little too chaotic. But I think they'll be good enough to beat Nova. DRG versus JDG. Honestly, this might be one of the best matches in the early stages of kickoff because DRG is a very fun team to watch with Nathan D, the head coach, cooking up some crazy strats. Fukashu, one of the most fun players to watch. Um, Obviously, they reascended. They looked very good at Ascension. They got to play a lot. And they should come in pretty solid, but they're always a very like up and down, hit and miss team, and they are going against a team that I think has a lot of potential this year. So this is maybe one of the first big tests for both of these teams, and I think I'm probably going to actually favor JDG here, um, just because I'm a little bit more confident in Bale as a coach. I mean, I love Nathan D, but he he definitely does some weird stuff. Um, and I think that the JDG roster just has some real incredible potential this year. Um, but again, this is a close one. This is definitely a close one. But DRG, they're crazy, but sometimes that can go the wrong direction. Now, Xilai and Wolves is definitely an interesting matchup also because Xilai replaced two of their players. They're actually getting Lysor from Wolves, and then WS Leo, who I'm not super familiar with, but they kept their main core of Happyway, Rarga, and Noman, and of course their head coach they re-signed. So these guys were very good last year. I would say from scrimming them, they were probably like top two in China as far as difficulty to play against. Like their fundamentals were good. It seemed like they always had good plans going on. They were good at like masking stuff that they were doing. They were kind of hard to read. And so I'm fairly confident that this team will be good again. I would say, like a top four team around there. They should hover in China. Wolves, I think, they're an interesting team. Are they going to be good Wolves or bad Wolves? And I don't know. I think if they're good enough to beat Trace, they probably are good enough to challenge Xilai, but I don't know if I'm going to be betting on them to beat them early on. Ooh, this is a tough one. It kind of depends on how good Spring is playing. Um, Hmm. Ooh, this is actually a tough one for me. Definitely a tough. I think I'm going to go with Sheila here, but I think this is going to be very close. This is going to be a very close one. I don't know if I'm fully trusting, Autumn and Glacier coming in for the first time, playing their first tournament. If this was like a bit of a more chaotic team, I might favor them more. But I feel like Shilai was one of the more structured teams in China, which is definitely a big advantage, I would say, just because a lot of these teams kind of play some crazy, unorganized Valorant. And if you're able to just kind of like let the other teams crumble into your setups, then you're in a pretty good spot. So we'll put Shilai through, but honestly, this could go either way. EDG FPX, oh man, this is another tough one. I Part of me wants to bet on FPX here and say that EDG they kind of peaked already. They made one change. They brought in CB, um, who is a very good player, to add to their core of Kong Kong, Nobody, Smoggy, and Chichu. And they brought in Autumn, the head coach of T1, and they have a ton of coaches. They also grabbed the Nova Esports coach, Indigo. Who did he coach for? Some Korean team, I think. Before, honestly, I don't know how to rate this team, and I kind of want to pick FPX because they showed a pretty good level in the off-season tournaments. That being said, Hong Kong in a meta where the operator should be really strong because Sova and Fade got nerfed. It's so hard to bet against them, especially domestically. They've just always been so good. Even though they weren't necessarily the best team last year, they were still so good. I think I'm going to have to go with EDG here just because of the Kong Kong operator thing. And I think they're going to be mad that they were kind of bad last year and want to get back to the top. But, ooh, it's a tough one, honestly. That's a tough one. Um, but yeah, we'll go with it. Okay, let's go to middle round one. So all gamers versus FPX. I think this is a pretty easy FPX for me. Like if I think they have the potential to beat EDG here, they should very easily handle all gamers. Wolves should beat Titan. I think Titan is probably the worst team in the league. Um, you know, as rough as it is to say that, I think that's just the case. Trace DRG. I think this is a DRG for me. Again, I think that this team is pretty scary, and I just don't totally know what version of Trace we're gonna get. I mean, these guys could be very good. Um, they definitely can be good, but DRG is just they're just a wild card, and I think that they kind of leveled up last year. Um, even though they didn't, even though they had to ascend again, it wasn't necessarily because they were a bad team in China. It was because Zhilai was just even better, right? This wasn't a case where it's like, oh, they got dropped down to Ascension because they were kind of a weak team. They were actually one of the best teams in the league, um, but they just unfortunately also had another incredibly good team that placed higher than them and forced them to go back to Ascension. So I think DRG should be pretty good this year. Tyloo Nova. Okay, this is where I think I'm going to have to just bet on the potential of Tyloo. Even though, this team has more experience, I would say, I really want this team to be good because they have so much potential in their players. I think they might struggle a bit early on, but I'm going to bet on them for their what would be, I don't know, maybe a little bit of an upset. Um, and we'll just send Tyloo through. Okay, lower round one, our first elimination match, all gamers versus Titan. I mean, the battle of mid, honestly. Flip a coin. What's the all gamers? Bruh, I don't know. Let's go ahead and send Titan through. I know I just said that Titan's probably going to be the worst team, but facing elimination, this is a full team that's played together before. Send them through. I don't know. I don't know what to think about this all gamers team, but not not a big fan of either of these teams, obviously. Trace versus Nova. This is another one where it's like, dude, I don't know. I mean, Hebei was on Trace. Maybe he knows this team. I think probably just because they dropped Fong Fong, who was one of my favorite players in China last year. I'm gonna pick Nova, but realistically, probably No, I think I got to go with Trace. I think I got to go with Kaisenat and Trace. I mean, these guys are good, and they added Delby, who's very good. So they should be good. Okay, let's go to middle round two. Ooh, we got some big matchups here. So FPX versus Wolves. This is a tough one. This is a tough one. I think I think this is where I kind of have to just go with FPX. Have shown a little bit more in the offseason. They look good. The Wolves. If I were to pick Wolves here, it'd be betting on like just the pure potential without really knowing how they're going to come together as a team. I think FPX has shown sort of like a standard that is too consistently solid with potential to be very good for me to pick against them at this point. Like I said, I think this Wolves team could be very good, but I think FPX early on in the season should be better. So we'll go with FPX here. DRG versus Tai Lu. I think this is another one where it's like DRG, they're probably just too experienced as a team, keeping the same roster, playing Ascension. I think they probably should beat Tai Lu. They should be a little bit more on the same page, a little bit more coherent as a team. And even though Tai Lu has skill, I don't think it's going to be enough to carry them through against DRG. Let's go to our lower round two, second elimination matches. Titan against Tai Lu. I mean, I'll send Tai Lu through again. Like early season, Tai Lu could crumble, but I just don't really like this Titan roster. So we'll go ahead and send them through over Titan. Trace versus Wolves. This is another very tough one. I think I'm trying to put myself in the analysis booth. Okay. So Spring, if Wolves keep Spring on smokes, which I think they will with Autumn and Glacier on this team, then I think if Wolves is playing Spring on Duelist, I do not like that. Because while I think he can be a very good duelist, I think he functions better for this team on like the smokes role because he has like duelist sensibilities which translate very well to like the Viper and the Omen. And so if they have him on duelist, I would be much lower on Wolves. But if they have him on the same role he was playing last year, where I think he really shined, then I think they will be in a good spot. Wolves or Trace? I think I have to go with the Wolves here, but I do not feel that comfortable about this pick. I really do think that Trace can be a solid team, but I'm kind of going to go with the potential of Wolves here. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I like some of the people on the Wolves team. The TMV lore, whatever. I'm not going to justify it too much. Let's go to the upper round three. Billy against JDG. Bale against his former team. Oh man, I kind of want to pick JDG here, and I think I'm going to do it. This might be like the breakout team of the tournament. Bale should know how to beat Billy, and even though Billy picked up a champion-winning coach, right? They brought in Muggle from EDG. I just don't know. Like, is this a good move for them? I don't know. I feel like Bale was doing a lot for this team, and I feel like this is a team that is sort of primed for maybe a bit of a regression, just because they have essentially the same style for the longest time with Knight and YZ on the team. Rushia is incredible mechanically, but kind of inconsistent. Neff was really kind of like a breakout IGL star, but I don't necessarily know if that growth will continue. And then Levius is another, he's like kind of similar to Rushia, where like he can pop off, but also he's very inconsistent. And honestly, YZ is kind of inconsistent. I feel like this whole team is kind of inconsistent. And last year they were kind of like all peaking at the right time, but then they definitely kind of crumbled at Champions. And I think this is maybe like my number one team in China that could have a severe regression this year. And so because of that, I think I'm going to pick JDG just because like the coach should know them. He should know what their tendencies are. Um, and I'm a big believer in this JDG team. I could be completely wrong. They might lose to DRG, and this entire pick'em could be cooked. But we're gonna bet on it this time. Okay, Shilai and Edward. This is an interesting one as well because obviously Shilai probably ended up as maybe the better team at the end of last year than EDG. But again, this is going to be a nuts battle of the oppers. Kong Kong versus Rarga, two of the better oppers in the league. I think I'm just going to go with EDG here, though. It's tough, man. I was saying that Shilai was one of the harder teams to scrim. EDG was one of the worst scrims. they were just all over the place. We would like 10-2, 11-1 them in one half, and then they would come back and like 11-1 us sometimes in the second half. Or sometimes they would just like seemingly start tilt swing. I don't know. It was a weird. They were a weird team to scrim. How do I rate this team? I think I'm gonna believe in Kong Kong until proven otherwise. I think I'm just gonna believe in Kong Kong until proven otherwise. Oh, this is so boring if they get the first seed. I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel like these pick'ems are not going to be very accurate, but we'll keep going. FPX versus BLG. I think I'm going FPX over BLG here again. I'm less confident in this BLG team than probably some other experts are. I would say that they were also one of the more difficult teams to scrim. Like them and G-Lai were two of the most difficult teams to scrim in China. But I think that I kind of like this new FPX team. I'm just not sure about BLG. Are they going to be bad? Can't be that bad. Is FPX going to be that good? Okay, pause. I'm sorry, guys. I want to make this one quicker because I know that China is probably the least popular region, but I just need to quickly look at this. Okay, so they got cooked by PaperX, but that is PaperX. They lost to Gen G. They beat Nova. They beat G2. Did beat PaperX once. I think maybe I just picked BLG here. Just talked about how they might regress. Are they going to regress that much? China's so hard to predict. I think I'm going to go BLG. Okay. I'm going to go BLG. Okay, Dragon Ranger Gaming and G-Lai. Now, these teams, I'm sure they played each other a bit last year. I kind of want to see how these games went. So DRG beat them. This was beat them in playoffs twice. Stage 1, they didn't. I think I am going to go DRG here. I feel like these teams match up kind of in an interesting way where Sheila is trying to play like regular Valorant and DRG is willing to kind of roll in the mud. And no, DRG just does some weird stuff. The fact that they beat them twice in a row last year kind of leads me to believe that maybe they kind of have the answers. And well, XOG should kind of have learned from that. I think I'm just going to go with DRG because they kept their roster together, and I think they looked quite good at Ascension. So they'll have more chemistry. Okay, let's move on to lower round 3. Tyloo versus FPX. I think this is FPX. Tyloo too inexperienced, I think, at this point to beat a team that's of FPX's caliber. Wolves versus Shilai. Ooh, this is going to be interesting. Again, I had Shilai winning over the Wolves in the first match. Does Wolves learn enough to beat them for the second match? I think the answer is probably. I think Shilai will be a little bit better than all. But yeah, I don't feel super confident about that. Okay, let's go to this game, FPX versus XLG. Hmm. FPX versus SLG. Who did WS Leo play? On Thunder Gaming. Lysor was on. Honestly, I think I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go FPX. I'm gonna go FPX here, and I think it's really just that I rate. I mean, I think they're kind of like right around the same level, honestly. I just have a little bit more confidence in the FPX guys that have been on the team for a while than I do in like Rarga, Noman, and Happy Way to repeat what they did last year. Um, Even though, XOG obviously they won Ascension and then they continued with good form, but integrating a couple new players, FPX is well. I could go either way on this one. I'm just gonna go with FPX, but realistically, I think either of these teams could go through here. Okay, let's go to middle round 4. BLG versus DRG. Oops, I didn't mean to click that, but I think that is the direction I'm going to go. I'm going to send DRG through. I'm kind of a Vukashu fan. I just like how these guys play the game, honestly. They do some weird stuff. The double duelist meta should fit them very well, to be honest. Like Akaman, he's kind of at his best when he's playing sort of like a secondary or pseudo duelist. And I think that, this is a team that just wants to brawl a lot, and that should kind of fit the meta that we're going into. Again, I don't know. This is probably another one that could go either way, but I'm kind of a fan of how DRG plays the game, so we're going to go ahead and send them through. And then BLG versus FPX. We went BLG here. FPX, do they get the rematch buff? I think so. We'll send FPX through. BLG gets knocked out. Going back to JDG, EDG, I think we're just going to have to do the boring thing and send EDG through as the first place. As much as I kind of want to think about EDG maybe falling off a bit, they added a good player for their 5th sort of rotating spot that they had all of last year. CB is a very solid player. They are a championship, a world championship team. Obviously, the coaching situation, who knows how that's going to go. But I kind of just have to believe in this roster for now until proven otherwise. JDG versus DRG is another very interesting one. We had JDG winning the first time, and I kind of want to go. Okay, again, we're going to have to do a little bit of research. Let's go to how did BLG do against DRG last year for Bale on the coaching side of things? So they beat them in the grand finals 3-1. They lost to them in upper bracket finals 1-2, and then that was the times they played against each other. That's not very helpful. Man, I kind of just want to send DRG through. I think I will. Let's go DRG. Let's go DRG. And then here, this is another interesting one, another potential banger. And you know what? Let's take a flyer on it. Let's send JDG through. JDG finally breaks through, makes it international. FPX is just gonna miss out. Honestly, this is probably the least confident I've felt after any of these pick'ems, but there it is. Flame me in the comments below, and we'll see you in a new video soon.